Hey friends, welcome back. I've actually been down in the cut flower garden weeding for the past 2 hours, and I'm going to switch gears because I have one garden chore that needs to be done. It is time for me to trellis my peas. Now, I've grown peas in a number of different ways. I've done the teepee, I've done an arch, but generally speaking, you always need to trellis your peas. Even the ones that say that they only get 30 inches tall, I still throw them on something. You know, you could even use a leftover tomato cage, and that would be perfectly sufficient for those shorter varieties. But what I'm going to do today is a couple of things. First and foremost, I stopped by my garden center and I grabbed some trellis. This is the one that has like the larger 5-inch squares. The only bummer is it's 5 feet by 10 feet, which is not the right dimension for this trellis. So what I've done is I've also grabbed my garden twine. This is just a jute, it's green. So what I'll do is I'll stretch the netting between both poles, and then we'll just kind of loop this up and over the top to stretch it all the way up. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pop over in the other garden bed and I'm going to sow a little bit of parsley and cilantro. This is actually cilantro seed from last year, and this is leftover parsley seed from last year as well. There are a lot of herbs that I will simply buy a 4-inch start of, but in terms of parsley and cilantro, I just start it myself. So with that said, let's jump in. Here's my thought process. My nursery only had 5 by 10. The interior dimensions here are 7 feet and 6.5 feet tall. So I think what I'm going to do is I am going to take my netting, I'm going to affix the top corners here, and then kind of stretch it up by looping it up and over the top. These Oregon sugar pod or Oregon snow peas are a shorter variety. They'll probably only get about this tall. These sugar snap peas, however, though, I anticipate that they will actually reach the top. So that is where I really need the height. So let's just jump in and see what happens. Oh man, this is going to be like a disaster and a half. No! I love the birch tree. I love the birch tree. What the? Oh my God. All right, friends, you heard it here first. You can do this project alone, but my goodness, it is way more effective when you have a friend. We're going to tie it off here. So you can tell it's the corner because there's a little tie off at the corner. Okay. All right, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little bad right across here. See if I can tie off the other corner. Oh, I feel like this is way longer than 10 feet. Maybe it's not. Okay. That looks about right there. Now, before I go stretching this thing up, what I've done is I've actually made a mistake here. It would have been easier if I had planted them back here so they were in line with the pole, but instead what I did is I planted them on either side of my irrigation line. So what I need to do is actually take my little netting and stretch it down and tack it right along this drip line. So that way my peas can readily grab it with their sweet little tendrils. You can see this is already happening here, and begin climbing up. So I'm just going to tack this down in a couple of places along the way here. And I'm using some landscape fabric staples. I think I might end up switching these out, but just for right now, they will do the trick. Okay, let's do a couple more. And this one, you can see these peas are just like so ready to climb. Oh, and I always hate separating them. All right. Now I have a bunch of excess netting here, and I don't want that necessarily flopping around in the breeze. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to simply tie it to the side so that it's not getting into everything. Okay, excellent. All right, now, oh, actually, let me do this other side as well. I'm securing this in place so that the netting doesn't try to pull in from each side because it's springy, so it's naturally going to want to pull in. So I'm just going to secure it in a couple places here so that it's stretched out across the whole length of my trellis. All right, now, last but not least, I'm going to tackle the top. Now, the reason I am pulling this up to the top is so that as the peas grow and climb, they aren't pulling this netting down because these posts are slick, so it can slide up and down. So I'm just going to go up and over the top and secure it on that end too. And what you'll notice I'm doing is I secured the center, and then I'm gonna secure another midpoint, and then I'll come in and I'll go either or all the way down. And the whole goal of this is so that we are stretching this net evenly. And hopefully these little tendrils will start climbing this guy instead of each other. Okay, all right, next job. So as per usual, I am heavily amending my soil with compost. Make sure we have plenty of nutrients for the growing season ahead. And there were a lot of questions that people asked me about how much, how far down. Basically what I do, and right or wrong, this is just what I do, is I mix the top, say, 3 inches of soil with about a 50-50 mix of compost. So I'm not going down super far. I'm not disturbing all those organisms that love the deep down dark. I'm just working with the top 3 inches and amending it 50-50 with some compost. And I don't have earthworm castings. I ran out, but this will be fine for now. Then we cut a little furrow here. I'm going to do parsley on the back side and cilantro on the front side. Now, when I plant my cilantro, I will do a first sowing here, and then I'm probably going to do a second sowing closer towards the inside of this arch area. And that's because I find that my cilantro comes up in a big batch, and then it all goes over at once. So it all goes to seed super duper quickly. So I like to spread out my sowing so I can enjoy it for longer periods of time. Oh, and if you see one of these bad rides, this is not a garden friend. This is a garden foe. So we want to get rid of that. Alrighty. All right, next up, flat leaf parsley. So when I'm sowing this, I'm really sowing a couple seeds every, say, 3 inches or so, maybe 4 inches. And the only reason I'm sowing a couple is that they're so tiny and I always have extra. So I don't mind overseeding it. Parsley is one of those crops that you don't need to sow multiple times. I will usually sow it once at the beginning of the season, and that's enough for me to cut on and really have plenty to use through the fall. Okay, I was just about ready to walk down to the cut flower garden and found this guy. This is the bloom off of a rhubarb. Now, this is actually really a stunning bloom, but I want production to go into the stalks because this is actually going to be the first year that I'm able to pick off of this rhubarb plant. Typically speaking, you want to plant a rhubarb, you want to let it mature for 1 year. The first year, you can pick up to, I'd say like 1/4 to 1/2 of the stalks. On the second year is when you can really go hard at harvesting your rhubarb. I picked nothing last year, so this is really the first year that I'll get to enjoy this, and I want to make sure I have as much rhubarb as possible, so this guy is done. So this is one of the rows that it took me about 2 weekends to get fully weeded, but I planted everything down almost to the very end, and it is weeded on both sides. So I'm ready to actually plant all of my sunflowers on this north side. This weekend, you guys actually saw me get started down here, but I finished off the row completely. And again, these are like 33 feet long. And so, I mean, it takes a darn long time to get through here and weed, and I've got so much bindweed and blackberry going on. But you can kind of see we got all of my Maryland dahlias in, and I'm doing 12-inch spacing on this guy. And I've actually just started in on this side. And what you can see me do here is, even though I'm doing these 12 inches apart, I am staggering them so I have just the maximum amount of space. And this is a variety called Golden Scepter, and I had enough to divide and have 2 plants this year. So in any event, and gosh, you know, even just looking at the soil down here, I amended this and you can still see it's just a sand pile. But you know what? Little by little, we're gonna get there. You know, little by little. Okay, last but not least, we have a garden arch. Now, this garden arch was actually down in the cut flower garden, and we brought it up here just to see how we would like it. Already, it is huge. It's gigantic. So what I've decided to do is I just want to pop it up in place, see how we like it. This is a thinner arch. It's maybe only a foot wide. They did have 20-inch wide arches, which I think would fit the space a lot better. But just for the purposes of planning and design, we want to just set it in place with the smaller one, see how we like it. Oh! Oh my gosh. Okay. Whew. Okay. Here we go. Oh, okay, there we go. Okay, not bad. Oh, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. Oh, it's kind of doing one of these things. She's a little bell-shaped. She's a little bell-shaped. Okay. But we do keep in mind that it's not gonna, we're not really gonna see this. Because if we do our work correctly, it's gonna be covered in squash vines. Oh, actually, I think it's kind of cute. What do you think? Okay, we're gonna leave it for now. It is more narrow. The one that I would put in would be twice as wide. I think this might be the ticket. I mean, I can see myself doing another Freyr trellis along this side, but I need like more structure for vines to climb onto. All right, well, that's it for me today. Just a short little video, a little garden projects, little things to get done. If anyone noticed my knees, I literally spent like 2.5 hours in the cut flower garden today. We're making great progress down there, but I don't think looking at weeding for 2 hours is a very entertaining video. So in any event, I'm gonna get on with my day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm gonna see you in the next one. In the meantime, say hello to your garden for me. Bye.